All right, everybody, welcome into Around the Felt. I am your host, Reagan. I am here with the Week 12 recap. Fortunately, I am by myself. All the other guys I do the podcast with, who are part of the Around the Felt community, could not join me tonight. So that is very unfortunate. So tonight's podcast will be shorter, A, due to that fact, but B, there was only 13 games this week. So, not exactly the longest podcast. And then we had some different news this weekend. Wasn't crazy on it, but we had let's see. I mean, really there wasn't a ton of crazy news. I know Bryce Huff, the Eagles D end, who really hadn't lived up to his expectations, was put on the IR. Pacheco did miss Sunday. Isaiah Pacheco, the running back for the Chiefs. Um, and I think that is because they're a 9-1 football team now. And yeah, they seem primed to be in the playoff position. So why rush him back? Who else? Devonta Smith obviously didn't play. Jake Ferguson didn't play. Brock Purdy. So a lot of guys, were injured who missed it. Trent Williams missed the game as well. I'm trying to think who else. Oh, and some news that happened in the game. Gardner Minshew broke his collarbone, so he is out for the rest of the season. So for the Raiders, it'll be interesting to see what they do from here because obviously O'Connell's out, he's out. They play on Black Friday, so it looks like Desmond Ridder will be starting. So not a fun matchup for that. I know we're a team that was floated around to get Daniel Jones. To me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Because if you're a Raiders fan, you want the team to tank, and Daniel Jones actually gives them a chance. Where you know what Desmond Ridder is, so no harm there. And I know it looks like Roquan Smith is probably going to miss tonight's game. I am recording this on a Monday, so obviously the Ravens and the Chargers game has not happened yet. Um, yeah, but I mean that's really it in terms of that kind of stuff. So I'll get into the questions now. So we'll start out with Austie, the main man himself. He wants to know who the best team in Week 12 was. So you know, to me, I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. And I know the 49ers obviously were playing without Brock Purdy, but they still got some guys, man. They do. And defensively, I mean, the Packers looked pretty sound. And yeah, it's Brandon Allen. But offensively, they had their way with that 49ers defense at home, winning 38-10 in dominant fashion. I mean, they kind of went out and showed why they got Josh Jacobs and why they paid him that big contract in the offseason. So I was impressed with him, obviously going over 100 yards and the 3 touchdowns. Love didn't need to do a ton here. Obviously, only 23 attempts, but just a huge win for the Packers, offense and defensively. And I mean, it's crazy to say it 8-3. They're the 3 seed right now in the NFC North. So pretty crazy to me on that. So I'd say the Packers for that. Now he wants to know what player had the biggest performance from Week 12. Uh, that's an easy one. Saquon frickin' Barkley on Sunday Night Football. I mean, holy cow! I mean, dude had over 255 rushing yards. I believe he had 2 touchdowns of over 70 yards rushing. And not only that, he added another 47 through the air. So 302 scrimmage yards, 2 touchdowns on 30 touches. I mean, the guy was averaging 10 yards a touch, untouchable last night. So Saquon Barkley, by far, a big catalyst behind it. And I saw on a lot of sports books now, they're offering him at like plus 600 to win the MVP. I still don't think that's worth it. I find it hard to believe that a quarterback won't win the award, just going off of the recent history. To me, that seems like a donation, but if you like the value, sure, sprinkle it. To me, I'm staying away from that, though. Now he wants to know, what was the best game from Week 12? Yeah, Austin. I mean, there was a lot of, close ones, a lot of blowouts. I mean, you could say the Cowboys Commanders, but that really only got interesting towards the last 5 minutes of the game where there was nonstop scoring. I would say to me, I really enjoyed watching that Titans Texans game. It was kind of back and forth. Some big mistakes by both Stroud and Levis throughout this game, but I mean, both guys showed flashes of why they are going to be some of the better quarterbacks for years to come. So I would say the Titans Texans. I also enjoyed the Steelers Browns on Thursday Night Football. I mean, how could you not with the snow game in the second half? And it seemed like the offense picked up even more in that second half once it started snowing. So whenever you add snow, it's gonna end as one of the top games to watch on the week. So now he wants to know which team had the worst performance from Week 12. Mm, I mean, I want to say the Niners, but obviously dealing with the injuries. But I'll go with I'm going to go with a tie here between the Colts and the Cardinals. I mean, both teams well, put up 6 points, so the offenses were nowhere to be found. I lean the Cardinals more just because you are leading the NFC West at that point. You kind of control your own fate. You come in piss hot off the bye and you put up a dud. I mean, everything you had 2 weeks to prep for Seattle. They're obviously coming off of a big win in the 49ers, and you put up 6 points. Like, Kyler had been balling. I know McBride did have a good game still, but very disappointed in the Cardinals, and I'm also very disappointed in the Colts. I mean, they were coming off a huge win against the Jets. Anthony Richardson obviously seemed like he was starting to come to his own, but the whole offense, Taylor was bottled up. I mean, it was nice to finally see Pittman get involved, but not a whole lot. So those two teams are major disappointments to me. And I know people are like, wow, the Colts were 6.5 point underdogs against the Lions, one of the best teams, but I expected a better showing from them. So those are my two biggest disappointments. Okay, so he's got a couple fantasy questions as well. He wants to know who you should trade for in fantasy right now. So yeah, obviously, in some leagues the deadline's already passed, and others it's this week. I mean, I've been saying it a lot. Cortland Sutton, the amount of targets he's been getting, he's a guy I'd definitely be looking out for with how impactful he's been and can be. So I'd look out for him as a wide receiver if you can go get him. I mean, running backs. I mean, if you're in a pinch right now and it's coming down to the playoff spot, I mean, if I'm a team that's seems like a lock for the playoffs, or not really fighting for one of those buys, I would go out to a team that's needs to basically win out to make the playoffs and go get one of those guys that have that week 14 bye, because you're going to get the tilt on them where they're it doesn't matter to them. They can hold tight, but if they don't make the playoffs, it doesn't matter. So you might be able to play that into your advantage. So I would say that trading for any players that are on buys if you're in a great spot. um yeah, so that's where I kind of landed on that. Now his next question was, who was the biggest surprise for you in fantasy football this week? Yeah, I would have to say two guys really stuck out to me. Jordan Addison was the first one. He obviously cooked the Bears, going for 8 for 162 and one. This year he's had a couple big games, but for the most part, actually, he's had more than a couple big games. I mean, he's had no, actually, this is his second time breaking 20 points and a half points. So he's been very boom or doom, or I should say hot or cold, so really hasn't done a ton. So this was a very nice game for him. I mean, 8 catches is the most he's had all season. The next closest was 5. So right there, I mean, beating your season high by 3 catches. Targets 9, that was also a high for him. So yards, and then obviously tying his touchdown. So just a huge game for Addison. Very surprising for me. Another guy that stuck out to me was Jalen Waddle. I mean, he really hadn't been. Actually, this is a big surprise. This is only the second time this year he's gone over double-digit fantasy points, and that first time was Week 1 against the Jaguars, where it was 5 for 109. So hopefully for you Waddle owners, you started him. Most likely you didn't, considering he hasn't done anything all season. But this was a very big surprise for me. Him going 8 for 144 and one. If I had him, I'd probably be trying to trade him and just be like, "Look, he's back. You see him and Tua are back." But yeah, that was a major surprise to me. Jalen Waddle doing that. And his final question is, who should you stay away from in fantasy? I would say a guy like that, Jalen Waddle. I wouldn't buy into the hype. I'd go off of what he had done all season. I mean, the dude had only a couple games over like. Actually, this is only the second time he's gone over 8 targets all year, and I know it's not all with Tua, but still, he's had a lot of dud games even with Tua, and he just hasn't been existent this year. I mean, he's only averaging 8 points per game in half point PPR. That's terrible. I mean, I'm really still staying away. I'm still nervous with all those Colts pass catchers. I know we're talking about that a lot, but the whole Colts offense, I don't love. With the Jets right now, a lot of uncertainty there. So I'd be probably wouldn't be, looking to acquire guys like that on that team where you don't even know if Rodgers is going to finish the season. I know that's been floated around that you know, it's been floated around that he may, you know, hit the injured reserve. I mean, a lot of the Giants options too aren't as good because obviously that offense really didn't look any better with DeVito. If anything, it looked worse than it had been. So I don't know. I mean, it's tough. I mean, week 14 especially, you just got to play a lot of these guys. You're not going to have the luxury with 6 teams on bye. But we got some other guys. Drock, while he couldn't make it, did submit questions. He wants to know, are the Eagles just as scary as the Lions? Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I got a nice plus 650 Eagles to come out of the NFC. If future. So I'm feeling very confident about that right now. They look like the second best team in the NFC right now. And yeah, you could make a case that they're the best team. I mean, they don't do it as they aren't as dominant on offense, maybe at times, but they're getting healthy. The defense has been balling out with Vic Fangio. So yeah, I think they're just as dominant and just as scary as the Lions. It's really becoming those two as the top two teams. And obviously, like the Vikings and Green Bay look dangerous too, but I feel like they're a little bit lower than those two teams. So yeah, I would say the Eagles are very dangerous, Jock. He wants to know, should I drop Singletary? Redraft shouldn't be on your roster. In Dynasty, I don't know. I mean, because there's not. You have the bench sizes are so big, and I know the Giants paid him, and he had a pretty good year with Houston last year. And with injuries always popping up, I mean, if Tracy, you never wish on injuries, but if Tracy is to miss time, I mean, Singletary would slide back into that 15 touch guy. So I probably wouldn't drop him. If you are going to drop him, I always like to look for young running backs that are in situations where it's like, hey, are they one injury away? Or hey, is there a chance that they can get some touches down the line? So I would look on your waivers and try to get a younger running back if you are to drop him. And his final question, which isn't even a question, it is Drock might be the worst gambler of all time. I guess that means Drock had a bad week. I mean, his underdog parlay did go 1 of 3. No, I'm sorry, 0 of 3. So um, for those that were chirping, Drock on that, you were right. Whatever. Drock, it doesn't matter, man. It changes every week. Some weeks are your weeks and some weeks aren't. So that just means you're going to be piss hot this week. And I freaking told you and you didn't listen. What's up with these Drox locks on even odds bets? I mean, DK Metcalf was like plus 150 to score. He didn't score. Give us some juice, man. Take a risk. You were flexing on everyone about that Taysom Hill bet a couple weeks ago. Where's that juice? Give us one of those juicy locks, mister. So, all right, let's move on. Zach, Mr. Around the Octagon himself. He wants to know, are the Commanders frauds? Best win is against the 6-5 Cardinals. I don't trust them one bit. He also says they also costed me a rack on LA, so fuck them. Yeah, I can see why you would think this, and I have to agree with you. I would say that they're fraudulent. I mean, they're 7-5 right now. You take out the fluke you win against the Bears, they're 6-6. So they're frauds in the sense that I think they're not like a true contender, but they definitely way ahead of schedule. I mean, at the end of the day, this was a team that was projected to win like 5 games this year. So they're ahead of schedule. I just think they went from being very underrated to very overrated really quickly, where they need to float back to that middle ground. I still think this is a team that could be in the playoffs, but I don't know. I find it hard to believe that they're going to be anything more than a first round exit. You never know if Jaden Daniels comes out like Superman, but you're starting to see some of the flaws in the rookie struggles, and it's understandable. He's a rookie, so yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say they're frauds. I just think they're kind of coming back down to earth a little bit because they were scorching hot for a while. But I mean, still looking at the standings right now in the NFC. Sorry, I disconnected for a second. But I mean, looking at the NFC right now and the playoff picture, I mean, they're still the 7th seed right now at 7-5. But you look at the Cardinals 6-5, half a game back. But Washington, like Zach said, does have the head-to-head. Tampa Bay's 5-6, Rams 5-6, Niners 5-6. So they really do control their destiny right now, where you just got to win a couple more games and you should be in. And the schedule's not too crazy. I mean, you get the Titans, a 3-win team. You get the Saints, a 4-win team. Then it picks up a little bit. You get the Eagles, but at home, I think you'll play better after playing them on Thursday Night Football a couple weeks ago. You get the Falcons, and are the Falcons that good? I mean, you can make a case they're frauds in their own right. I mean, I'd say the Commanders look better than them right now. And then you finish up the year with the Cowboys. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah. And Zach's final question, interesting, Zach. It's not a question, it's just his segment idea. He said jerk each other off on camera. So, maybe you never know. I mean, we're always open to punishment. So that's definitely one of the more vulgar ones. But, you know, we'll see, Zach. We'll see. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to it. Only if you're on that episode. Pause, 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 major pause. All right, but let's move on. Let's get into the recap. We had 13 games this week. We're only going to talk about 12 because I'm recording this on a Monday night. Ravens Chargers is currently going on. So let's start it out. First game, obviously, that snow game we talked about. The Cleveland Browns beat the Steelers 24-19. This was mine and Drock's big bet of the week. I put my kahunas on the line. I said, hey, Dave, let's do straight up. So I took the Browns. He took the Steelers. And the Browns won. So Dave, at some point, hopefully he does it soon. No guarantee with that guy. He's a very party animal esque type of guy. Will be doing um, a Taco Bell mukbang, and by that I mean he will be ordering every item off of the Taco Bell menu, and he will be eating it. So, we'll try to film it that it's not too long of a video, but yeah, you'll get to see Drock slamming it. A bunch of different Taco Bells and burritos, tacos, quesadillas, all that stuff into his gut. So, I'm sure people are excited to see that. I know I am. So, but anyway, I mean, Jameis, obviously, the stats aren't too crazy here, but let him downfield, kind of controlled it, had the big rushing touchdown at the end in the snow where he got absolutely upended, but he did score. Jerry Judy, the big catalyst, and seems to have really found his way now that Jameis is the quarterback. He's really coming into his own. And going back to that guys to trade for, I mean, Jerry Judy is a name that definitely interests me now, very much so. Over the past 4 weeks, he's gone over 70 yards in every game, had at least 6 targets and over 5 catches at least. So, he's definitely coming into his own. He's been relevant for fantasy the past 4 weeks, and a lot of that has to do with, Jameis Winston taking over at quarterback. And Chubb as well, the 20 touches only for 59 yards. So not super efficient, but the 2 touchdowns, very nice. So if you had him in fantasy and really hadn't been seeing the rewards after, stashing him on your IR for a while, you finally got it. On the Steelers side of things, Russ had a very good game, especially in the snow. I mean, he had the 270 passing with the touchdown. Jalen Warren was the running back to get in, but I mean, really neither him or Najee had a good game here. Calvin Austin did score. He was 3 for 78 and one. George Pickens only 4 for 48, so not a great game for him. And the funny thing with Calvin Austin, man, I mean, he's so hot and cold. I mean, with him, if you play him, you're just picking him up as a flyer and hoping he gets in. And this was one of those weeks when he did because he's a speedster, not going to get a lot of volume, but all right, so let's move on. The Minnesota Vikings take care of business against the Bears. They win 30-27. For those of you who watched the game, I mean, the game really wasn't close all game. The Vikings kind of were in control. And then the Bears kind of turned it on. They scored 11 points late to force it into overtime. Chicago really was humming. And then, at any team that really suffered just brutal beat after brutal beat this year, Chicago just finds different ways to lose every week, it seems like. And, they were humming on all cylinders. Then they win the toss then they win the toss coming out of the fourth quarter, opening up overtime. And then they go 3-and-out. So it just sucks for Chicago, man. They go 3-and-out. Then Minnesota goes down the field, scores a field goal. It's over. But I was impressed with Caleb. I mean, he had 340 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, using his legs again, adding 33. So I mean, he's viable for fantasy at this point. I will say the OC change has definitely been good for him. DJ Moore had a huge game, 7 for 106 and one. Keenan Allen finally had a nice game, 9 for 86 and one. And Cole Kmet was 7 for 64. Adunze obviously was the odd man out, only 5 for 39. But all the guys were very relevant, and Swift obviously didn't have a great game either for fantasy. On the Vikings side of things, Darnold had a nice game, 330 passing with 2 touchdowns. Aaron Jones, obviously the 106 and one. And then, on the Vikings pass catchers between Addison, who I highlighted earlier, obviously had a huge game. Hawkinson, the 7 for 114. So he seems like he's back to that, top 5 tight end form. And Cheddars was shut down in this game. And I know this was their game plan where we're going to take him out of the game, but he was non-existent. I mean, if you're in that like win now, need to get some win mode from your first round pick, he did not deliver, only 2 for 27. So not a great game from him, but I'm not worried about it at all. At the end of the day, he's, top 5 wide receiver, if not the best wide receiver. So not much to worry about there. But I don't know. Vikings are, I think I might owe them an apology. I mean, they're 9-2 this year. So, I mean, they're technically not a lock for the playoffs, but they're a lock at this point. So I had them winning like 5 games this year after the JJ McCarthy news. and I was kind of doubting Darnold. Maybe that was that Jets fan in me, just being a hater because he obviously didn't work out for us. But boy, has he been balling out, looking very good. So huge game for him. And yeah, they're 9-2. It might be time to start giving them their damn respect. Let's move on though. A game I was completely wrong on. The Colts handle business. Or I'm sorry, the Lions handle business once again, 24-6. I mean, their offense, obviously, on the Lions, this wasn't a boom game for them, and that's crazy to say because they've still put up 24, but they were kind of limited. I mean, Goff had 269 passing, but no touchdowns to show for it. Gibbs, obviously, 21 for 90 and 2, so a lot of touches for him, but Montgomery left with the shoulder injury, so hopefully he's good to go for Thanksgiving. If he's not, I mean, Jameer Gibbs is just going to go nuclear. And also, Jamison Williams, led the team with 5 for 64. And on the Colts side of things, I mean, Richardson didn't do a whole lot. JT was bottled up completely, 11 for 35. So he seems to be just not getting going, which is not great. And then for the pass catchers, nobody really did anything outside of Pittman, who was 6 for 96, having his best game of the year. So, for him, if you drafted him early, he's obviously been busting you. But at least if you started him this week or had him, in any of these formats. At least he finally was viable, but still not great for the Colts. And they're starting to slip out of that playoff race. So they're a team that can't afford more losses if they want to make the playoffs this year. Moving on though, the Miami Dolphins handled the Patriots here. We talked about it. I mean, don't be surprised if Miami rattles off a couple wins, and we're talking about this Green Bay game as them being right in the thick of things, and they are. They're 5-6 now. Tua looked amazing, 317 passing with 4 passing touchdowns. The ground game never really got going, but it didn't matter. Pass catchers. I mean, Waddle was 8 for 144 and 1. Jonnu 9 for 87 and 1. I mean, Tyreek only 5 for 48. I know he's playing banged up with the hand injury, but at the end of the day, I mean, kind of similar to what I was saying with Jefferson before. I mean, everyone else is going to go off if you really hone in on him and like saying, well, this guy's not going to beat us. And they certainly did. And obviously, A-Chain added 2 touchdowns through the air. So not a whole lot of yardage for him, only 50 yards all purpose, but the 2 touchdowns really saved his day. On the Patriots side of things, I mean, offensively, really didn't do much till it was garbage time. I mean, Maye did have the passing touchdown late to Austin Hooper, but not a whole lot of yards. Couldn't get the ground game going. Ramondre, I mean, didn't look great in this 8 for 13. So he, if he was one of those guys after his early success, you maybe went for or traded for, he's been burning you. Pass catching options. I mean, Hooper had the good game, but you're not playing him. Demario Douglas, 5 for 62. So that's kind of nice. He seems like him and Mac Jones. Sorry for disrespecting you. Him and Drake may have a nice little, you know, connection building. So it's very nice to see. But Patriots, I mean, you're trending looking at mock drafts, and the Dolphins. I mean, you're right in the thick of things. I mean, and we froze. Okay, we're unfrozen. Let's take a look at the standings right now. I know Denver obviously won, but looking at the playoff picture right now, Miami is now actually slides into eighth. They're game and a half back of Denver right now. So Denver obviously still has not had their bye. But if Miami can get a win this week and Denver gets a loss, I mean, Miami is right on their ass. So I'll be taking Miami this week. I'm really liking the way they're playing. So I think they're going to catch them and get that 7th spot. I mean, I'm kind of out on the Bengals and Colts at this point. And I said it a couple weeks ago with Colin when they were, I believe, 2-7. I'm sorry, 2-6. I was like, dude, do not count out Miami. And, they've rattled off 3 wins in a row. They're kind of at the easy part of their schedule, but hey, they still got some winnable games coming up. So don't be shocked at all if this is a playoff team. But let's move on to the next matchup here. That was between the Bucks and the Giants. Obviously, the Bucks handle business. They win 30-7 in MetLife. Baker Mayfield did Baker Mayfield things. He had 294 passing. He added a nice rushing touchdown. And that 3-headed monster they got going between Bucky Irving, Rashad White. I mean, why not Rock White? Rashad White and Sean Tucker. They all got in each once. That was nice to see. Mike Evans in his return was 5 for 68. Bucky was the big catalyst behind it. I mean, almost 150 all-purpose yards. the touchdown and the 6 catches. So that was nice to see. And it looks like Mike Evans' return really hurt Cade Otton because he was only 1 for 30. So with, guys like Mike Evans coming back and some of these running backs really developing, uh, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Now on the Giants side of things, though, Tommy DeVito, not a whole lot, kind of a game manager, really didn't do anything special. I mean, the 189 yards passing, he didn't turn the ball over, but nothing impressive to me. Tracy looked efficient, but had a bad fumble when they had a promising red zone drive going, so that kind of sucks. Um, Singletary did get in, but that didn't matter. I mean, Malik Neighbors 6 for 64. That's good, but he's not what he was at. I mean, and that was kind of my biggest knock on him was not that he's not talented, but I thought his potential would be limited early on just because inconsistent quarterback play. And I feel like this is really going to hurt him because I don't know if Tommy DeVito's much of an upgrade at all. If anything, he's going to hurt him a lot for fantasy. So if Drew Lock's to come in, he's a much more intriguing option to me. But at this point in the season for fantasy, you're just going to keep playing him. But let's move on. Dallas with a huge road victory over the Commanders. I mean, Dallas has just kind of owned the Commanders historically, and they continue to prove that here. Cooper Rush, 247 and 2. So it was nice to see that. Rico Dowdle really taking over this backfield completely. I mean, he had 86 rushing yards, added another 12 through the air, so almost 100 scrimmage yards for him. CeeDee Lamb, while he wasn't the most efficient, or I'm sorry, while he was he didn't have the most receiving yards. He was 10 for 67. So, with having that many catches and stuff, he was nice for PPR formats, but still, I mean, not great, but it won't ever get to what it was with Dak with Cooper Rush. He's just not that type of quarterback that he can, keep CD at that top receiver type upside. On the Washington side of things, I mean, Jaden Daniels 275 and 2, but 2 bad interceptions. He did add 74 yards on the ground plus a touchdown. So for fantasy, he had a big game. So, I mean, he was still getting his numbers, but a lot of that obviously comes with a big pass to Terry McLaurin for 75 yards. And it's funny because Terry went for over 102. Or I'm sorry, 86 yards, not 75. Terry was like 4 for 16, and then he gets that 86-yard catch and saves not only the game, but his fantasy game. So a nice game for him. But guys like Eckler left with a concussion. Brian Robinson got banged up early, so Washington's backfield right now might be in shambles. But with waivers running this week, Jeremy McNichols is a name to watch out for next week because even if it's a 1-week start, I mean, hey, you're trying to make a playoff push. If both those guys miss, McNichols is a guy who's shown some juice at times this year, so not bad for a 1-week fill-in. And Austin Seibert, man, I mean, obviously he missed a field goal. He missed the extra point. I mean, he had been, or 2 extra points. So he's a guy that's, obviously won you that game early on against the Giants, but it was pretty clear he's not fully healthy yet. I had him in fantasy and I was like, you know what? Like, I think you should never play a kicker if they have the questionable tag at any point in the week because it's just so, such a good chance for like hamstrings and leg injuries to flare back up. So I definitely avoided that, but let's move on. All right, moving on. We had the Chiefs versus the Panthers. Chiefs obviously squeak it out 34-27, but my Panthers, man, they are percolating at the right time. Bryce Young, we'll start with him because honestly, even with the Chiefs winning, this feels like more of a win for the Panthers. Bryce Young, the 263 and 1, really coming into his own the past 3 weeks, giving the Panthers some hope for their future. Chuba Hubbard, 58 and 1 on 16 carries. Jonathan Brooks only 2. So, for those of you Chuba Hubbard owners that were maybe a little worried, it does not seem like Brooks is going to take over or make it a 50-50 timeshare. Well, actually, he won't take over, but it doesn't look like it's going to become a 50-50 timeshare at any point soon. And David Moore, leading receiver, 6 for 81 and 1. It was nice that he got Thielen back. He was 3 for 57. So great to see that. On the Chiefs side of things, obviously Mahomes cooked in this game, which was expected. 269 and 3. Kareem Hunt, I would have liked to see more in a plus matchup. I mean, he did have the 68 yards on the ground and the 19 through the air on 3 catches. But the big storyline was Noah Gray, actually, 4 for 66 and 2. Kelsey was 6 for 62, and Hopkins the 5 for 35 and a touchdown. So nice games for all those guys. I mean, Noah Gray is an interesting name to me, not to start this year or next year, but once Kelsey is to leave, I mean, hey, he might end up taking over with Mahomes for a couple years. I mean, I know they gave him the contract in the offseason, so not a bad spot to be in. So for Dynasty, he's a name that I'd be looking at long term to see if there's anything there. But let's move on to the next game. And that was, here we go. The Titans, they beat the Texans 32-27. This game was back and forth all game. Obviously, it came down to the end when Kyami Fairbairn misses the chip shot to tie it 30-30. And then the Texans end up getting the stop, get the ball back. But CJ Stroud runs out of the end zone for a safety. So they end up losing 32-27. One of the biggest surprises for me on the Texans side of things was not only CJ Stroud's turnovers, but Joe Mixon. I mean, really got bottled up. A guy who had been dominating all year, but was held to just 40 yards. And that was on 19 touches, 14 carries to 5 catches. So not a whole lot from him. I mean, it was pretty evident having Nico Collins back. He had a great game, the 5 for 92 and 1. So that was nice. On the Titans side of things, I mean, Will Levis going viral for his pick six, which I think is dumb because, I mean, the dude still had 278 and 2. Very efficient. Added another 10 on the ground. Tony Pollard, obviously, he had a big game with the 119 and 1. No Tajay Spears. So, as long as he's out, it seems like Pollard will be the guy, and it'll be more of like a 66-33 split. Okonkwo, 1 for 70 and 1. So if you started him, I mean, his one catch and one target, he made the most of it, obviously getting a house call. And then is one of the top tight ends on the week off of one big broken play. But hey, we'll take it. And Ridley was 5 for 93. So they continue to grow that relationship. It seems like ever since Hopkins was moved, he was, very evident. Oh, and Akina Westbrook scores again. And he was only 2 for 48 and 1. But this guy has 6 touchdowns this year on 17 catches. So he makes the most of his opportunities here. And it's funny. I mean, I don't think anyone had that on their bingo card for him to have that. But if he ends up getting 10 touchdowns this year, what kind of story would that be? A guy like that, maybe not even getting 30 catches, but having 10 touchdowns. But seems like a good bet every week to be an anytime touchdown scorer. But let's move on to the 4 o'clock slate. The Broncos beat the Raiders 29-19. So just another big win for Bo Nix. And, he keeps continuing on with his offensive rookie of the year campaign. He was 273 and 2. Did seem like McLaughlin, or I'm sorry. It did seem like, yeah, with this scattered backfield, it seems like it was McLaughlin's this week. I mean, he did get out carried by Javonte by 1, but Javonte was 8 for -2. Estime was 3 for 15, and McLaughlin was 7 for 44. And he was obviously the one used in the passing game normally, but I mean, I don't know, just an ugly backfield. I'm staying away from that at this point. I mean, you could pick up guys and throw them on your bench, hoping some more clarity comes down the line, but you can't start any of the running backs here. Uh, the pass catchers, Cortland Sutton continues to dominate, 8 for 97 and 2. So, he's been one of the biggest bright spots for this team. And it seems like now that he's finally got like a solid quarterback, he can really develop, or not develop, he's developed, but he can really shine. Vele had the 6 for 80. So that was nice. I mean, they got a lot of young wide receivers there around Sutton. So that's cool. On the Raiders side of things, I mean, Minshew was looking comparable at times, but obviously the big injury, the collarbone injury, so he's out for the year with that. Jacoby Myers was 10 for 121, so with no Devontae, he's getting his. Brock Bowers, unfortunately, only 4 for 38, so you didn't love to see that. And Trey Tucker, 7 for 82. Trey Tucker's a guy I would say if he's in your dynasty league, scoop him up. He's a deep sleeper to me. I've had him in a couple dynasty leagues, just hoping that he can continue to develop, especially when they get a legit passer of the football in there. So that would be nice in the future. Then the Packers beat the 49ers 38-10. Very dominant game for the Packers here. I know I talked about it a lot earlier. No Brock Purdy. It was the Brandon Allen starting, but Jacobs with the 3 touchdowns. That was nice. On the 49ers side of things, I mean, McCaffrey just didn't really have a great game here. I mean, they never really got him going. I mean, Kittle got his. Obviously, he was 6 for 82 and 1, so he's having a hell of a year. I believe he is in year 10 now. I could be wrong, but I mean, his stats are awesome. He's got 8 touchdowns this year. He is in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, year 8. But I mean, he's got 49 catches this year for 642 with 8 touchdowns. So he's having a nice, you know, great year 8. He manned up as the number 1 fantasy tight end this year, the way he's been playing. But I don't know, man. The Niners are in trouble. They got to figure it out. They got to get Brock Purdy back next week. I believe they got a tough matchup next week. Yeah, they got the Bills on Sunday Night Football, so they need to get their guys healthy, and that could be why that they were like, yeah, we may have a chance, but we need Brock for the long haul. So, let them miss a week, but not ideal for them either, man. Um, but let's move on. Seattle takes care of the Cardinals 16-6, a huge win for them. This division's super tight. So this was, kind of a must win for Seattle because then Arizona pulls 2 games ahead where now you actually pop right ahead of the Cardinals. Geno 254 with the 1 touchdown. That was nice. JSN continues to have his nice year 3 breakout. Or I'm sorry, year 2 breakout. The 6 for 77 and 1. DK was 4 for 59. So it does seem like JSN's kind of becoming that number 1 there in Seattle, where DK is more the number 2. Kenneth Walker didn't do a whole lot on the ground, but he added 4 for 53, 2 through the air. So, almost 100 all-purpose yards. On the Cardinals side of things, couldn't get the run game going. I think that's what really hurt them, only having the 49 yards on the ground. Kyler did have a lot of passing yards, but the biggest storyline here was Trey McBride, 12 for 133. So, in the 15 targets, this is the guy that I said, could lead the league in receptions this year. And he's obviously not going to do it because a guy like Jamar Chase has already got over 70, but he's going to end up being close to top 5 by the end of the years. And this is why you took him with that round 3, round 4 pick, because of this. So, he's really proven it. You'd like to see the touchdowns go up from 0 receiving to at least 1. It's funny. His 2 touchdowns are one he hopped on in a fumble recovery and the other one he got as a runner. So you'd like to see him get some receiving work. And in our final game, Sunday Night Football, Eagles-Rams. Eagles dominate 37-20. I mean, Hurts, once again, didn't have to do a lot, and that has been the biggest reason that they're winning these football games to me is you're only asking him to throw the ball 20 to 30 times a game, and you're relying on your running game because this game they had 46 carries to 22 passing attempts. I really do think that's a recipe for the Eagles. And, Hurts did run the ball 12 times, and I love it. Use him as a runner. He's great as a runner. AJ Brown obviously also had a big game, 6 for 109 and 1. And of course, I talked about Barkley earlier, the 300 all-purpose yards with the 2 touchdowns. Career night. Just if you didn't see it, go watch it. I mean, Barkley just looks great, just insane. Very talented guy. And on the Rams side of things, Stafford did have the 2 passing touchdowns. Kyron did get in once, so he ends that streak of not scoring. He's got a nice little streak going again, but he had a bad fumble early, so you don't love to see that. It does seem like Puka and Kupp, no matter what it is, they're going to both get theirs. I mean, Puka was 9 for 117, so he seems like he's fully back. Kupp was 8 for 60 and 1, had the late garbage time touchdown to salvage his week. But overall, good week for football. With a lot of big spreads, I didn't know what to expect. And, on the records, I got them right here. I was 5-7 on the spread, 5-7 on the money line. I do have the Chargers straight up tonight, so we'll see what happens there. I am looking at last year. Okay, Colin, 5-7 against the spread, 7-5 against the money line, so a little bit better on the money line. Dave was 5-7 against the spread and 6-6 on the money line. So all of us not great against the spread this week, but at least Colin was positive on the money line. But not a great week for the boys. That's all right, though. It really is. So, and if you're still listening at this point, it was a shorter pod. I don't really got the steam to go an hour and a half by myself. It's nice to have some breaks, but I tried to give you guys something. For those of you who listen to, I appreciate you listening to this point. If you're not subscribed or following wherever you're listening to this, please do so. And these crew necks, as you can see, I got the baby blue on. Make sure you buy one. We really appreciate it. It helps us grow, gives us some advertising, but gives you a cool look for that winter season. So if you want one, visit our website or hit one of us up. So thank you guys.